Hey, Mick. Hey,
Oh,
how,
yeah.
how are you doing?
Not too bad. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can hear you perfectly well.
Okay. Right. So what's this all about then?
Well, I actually discovered your music. Um, I was looking through a ton of SoundCloud, um,
Yeah.
different types of music, funk, soul, blues, and that's how I kind of came across you. And I
Yeah.
very much enjoyed your music and found it very different and refreshing. So, and I went back, I hadn't done interviews in quite some time, and I love to learn and I love music, of course.
Mm.
So I thought, well, I might as well jump back in.
Yeah, why not? Well, maybe the reason it's a little bit different is that I'm not a musician. I'm a painter, really.
Okay.
Eh, yeah. Well, I'm a super realist painter, I think they used to call it. A realist painter. But I'll tell you, do you want to know about my back, how I got to playing music?
Okay. Yeah. Give me a
Or,
little
or
bit.
what? Or what do you do what you want to do? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a little bit on your background and on yourself.
Okay, well, I was born after the war to an unmarried mother who I don't know what she was doing. I've got no idea at all because I have no history of it or records of it. But by the age of 5, I was taken into care, into a children's home, where basically I was quite clever, which is unusual for kids in children's homes. And I was the first kid in the area to go to grammar school from a children's home. But to cut a long story short, I was in Kerr till I was about 17, doing physics, maths, chemistry, and art A levels. And then, of course, I was thrown out into the world because they won't keep you past that date. And so I suddenly found myself having been incarcerated, basically, in by 9 and all this kind of thing, or not out at all. I suddenly found myself in really bad company, which of course I delighted in because it was rebellious and it was fun. I ended up at clubs like the Twisted Wheel, which I don't know whether you know what it is, but it was a sort of Northern Soul movement
Okay.
where they imported X jukebox soul and music from America. And we had our slip-on shoes, our penny loafers, and the hats and the silk, you know. And I got into selling drugs, basically, amphetamines at that time. And there was a big raid on the club. I was arrested, and of course, being a kid with no significant others, I was incarcerated for about 6 months awaiting trial. And during that time, I had a nervous breakdown, of course, because I was isolated on my own with no companions and no contact at all. I was interviewed by a psychiatrist who said, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." Eventually, I get to the court, and I'm expecting a minimum of 3-year sentence, setting me off on a nice criminal career. But then from nowhere, this man stood up who apparently was my legal guardian. I never met him before in my life. And he said to the judge, "This lad is a very clever boy and he's very good at art." Well, I thought, what do you mean, very good at art? I want to be an airline pilot. He says, "He's very good at art." And the judge turned to me and says, "Well, are you good at art then?" I said, "Well, not bad. Would you like to go to art school instead of prison?"
Such
So,
difficult choices.
yeah, exactly. I didn't know which way to turn. No, well, I ended up for a couple of months in an art school in Liverpool, which was a foundation course. And I was very interested in ceramics because at school we'd had all those facilities and I taught myself because there wasn't a teacher. I just taught myself. And I said, "Well, I want to go to ceramics." And so I said to the staff there, "Which is the best school in Britain for ceramics?" They said Camberwell with Hans Koper, Lucy Ree, and these fantastically huge potters from escaped from Nazi Germany, I think, both Hans and Lucy. Anyway, I said, oh, that'll do me. They said, no, Mick, no, you want to go somewhere local because you're not going to get into that school. There are 4,000 applications for 8 or 9 places. And being a complete loony, I just said, no, I'll get in. And I got in. Then I had the issue of every single one of these people were either debutantes or sons of architects, and they knew about jazz and music and architecture and history of art. I knew nothing. I was just a scally from Liverpool, you know. And anyway, my reaction to that was just to learn fast. And so I finished. I did my ceramics and jewelry course. I then went on to do the first MA. And I was set up by the, well, it doesn't matter, this is all detail. But eventually I started painting.
Okay.
Yeah, and that seemed to go fine. And then I ended up with a gallery, a couple of shows a year in America. But it was I did that for about 30 odd years. It was pretty lonely, you know, in a studio, not listening to any other music other than requiems, you know, from, you know, just requiems all day, because the contents of my painting was to do with loss and, you know, retrieval of mothers and things, you know. And it just went on and on and on. And eventually I was getting very heavily monetarized by my gallery. In other words, they were ripping me off, you know. And there came a point where the selling of paintings was difficult in the 80s. And they, I had a show there, and it was this painting which was actually about the IRA, about Judas. It was a man in a bar whispering to another's ear and realizing he's been seen, you know. And they sold that painting, which was great, you know. But then I got this phone call, Mick, we've sold it again. I said, what do you mean you've sold it again? And he said, oh, just do another one and ship it over, you know. And eventually they sold that same painting into New York 5 times. So you know how small the New York art scene is. Those people are going to eventually realize they've got something the same or very similar on their walls, you know. Anyway, to earn some money, because I had a family by then and 2 children, I did it. And at the end of it, when it came for payment, he said, I can't pay you. I said, what do you mean you can't pay me? He said, you can come down to the big mansion and choose any furniture you like. I said, but I don't want furniture. I live in a small flat in London, you know. Anyway, I had no choice. So I ended up with all this grand piano and God knows what else, all this stuff. And at that moment, I decided, and also my eyes were going, and I was tired of being alone, you know. I was never allowed to meet the people who bought the paintings. It was all censored, and so I couldn't speak to them directly. You know what that's about. It's about money. And I decided I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm going to make music. And people said to me, well, you can't just make music. I said, well, I can mix paints. Surely I can mix sounds. So I started doing that. And a lot of my daughter's friends were artists, musicians and whatever. You know, they used to run this art center and gallery and eating space and bar. And I started meeting them. And initially I started with electro swing, remixing that stuff. And I was giving it to the DJs, you see. And then somehow or other, a company, a record label called Freshly Squeezed found me and signed me up. And so, you know, they were released on records, they were released online, they were released everywhere, you know. And then they said to me, oh, by the way, Mick, you're playing Glastonbury. And I thought, what do you mean I'm playing Glastonbury? He said, well, you are going to Glastonbury onto the Hell stage and you're going to play out all these tunes you've written to the audience. I said, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not a DJ, you know. They said, well, you better find out. You've got 6 weeks. So eventually I sorted out Ableton, which was some advice the easiest thing to deal with, and started playing. And then I've been playing big festivals ever since. That's it.
So what drew you to the kind of music that you play? Because you seem to play like a wide variety of blues, gospel, funk.
It's to do with truth. If they feel true to me. The tunes, some of those old blues tunes, you know, all that stuff that Lomax recorded. It's so true, you know, I can feel it.
Mhm.
I feel their sadness. I feel what I like about it is too, they're not angry. They're just sad and soulful. And that's why I was drawn to them. And I thought, well, I started to learn how to not just use Ableton for DJing, but to make music, you know. And I slowly learned how to do that and got better and better and better at it. And that's where I've ended up. That simple, really.
So was it difficult for you at first? Because they said, you know, you've got 6 weeks. Was it
Mm.
difficult to mix the music, or did it just seem to come naturally to you?
It was difficult. It was difficult, yeah. But I managed to blag it, as they say. You know, I managed to fake it, and it went down very well. And then, as the years went by, because that must have been at least 10 years ago, I started to get really good at it. And eventually, my sets were so beautifully crafted that people noticed, you know, and liked it. But to me, it's just like painting. It's just, you know, things have to be the right color or in the right place. And that's the way I work it. But I don't know how the mechanics of it work in my head. But yeah, that's it.
And that's the amazing thing about music, because I was listening to your stuff and different stuff last night, and it seems to be music so powerful. It's like it lifts you up, almost like you can fly, you know. It drives you, and everything. And that's the amazing thing. Music is so powerful, and it
Oh,
just
it is, yeah.
it brings.
Well, one of the best things about music, about playing out and music, is that people get to react to it. You know, I can stand in front of 2,000 young people and they're entertained by this geriatric who just stands there but making good sounds, you know. And it's great because you actually get a reaction, whereas as a painter, you never know what people think or do with your work, you know. And it was really nice to actually engage with the real world. And that's the joy of it. There's no money in it, but it's really, really, it makes me feel good for those few moments or those few hours. I usually, after my sets, disappear to my camper van and drink cocoa while everyone else is raving till 6 in the morning. But there are good things about that. I mean, the last thing I did was Shambhala last year. And it was a reduced thing. They were all on the same stage, you know, rather because it was because of, you know, COVID and the rest of it. But round about 1 in the morning, I finished my set and went to bed to my camper van, and everyone else went to the green room and partied till 5 in the morning, whereupon within 2 days, everybody in that group had COVID. I was the only person to survive not having COVID amongst the whole lot of us, you know, which must have been about 50 or 60, the other DJs. And
have you been lucky enough not to get COVID?
I've had my jabs. I've had my boosters. My daughter's very anti-vax, both my daughters, but I do what I want to do. And I haven't had COVID, no. Although I've got a suspicion, I mean, see, in the winter, we normally go to Goa after the season finishes, after the music finishes and the festivals are off. A lot of British, you know, managers and sound engineers and, you know, all sorts of people who run the festivals go to Goa for you know, November, December, January, and so on, you know. And I think I may have got something there because my son-in-law went off to the Himalayas for a week and came back and he was really ill, and then we were all ill. Okay. But that was a long time ago. That was way before it started.
Okay.
But I did get something then, and I've had a kind of fuzz in my head ever since. I don't know what they called it. Was it brain something or other? I don't know.
Okay.
You know, that it makes you feel slightly dull and kind of, you know, not quite in the world. But I suppose you get used to that. Or it could be just senility.
So are you feeling any better, or do you still have, you know,
I still have the fog.
Okay.
You know? But I haven't been ill, and these injections seem to work. Although they're telling us now that they don't anymore. Who knows? Who knows? I think really they should sacrifice us old gits and let the world go on. Stop worrying about us. We've had a really good innings, particularly the post-war bulge. I mean, we've been so lucky with education, and
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
So did you manage to make it through COVID music-wise and everything? Were you still kind of playing?
Yeah, we did one or two things. That one you saw now online, we did one or two of those with festivals, but they were really difficult. I mean, I can't even stand watching people playing on screen. I mean, it's just not the same. And gradually, after the first year, everybody started abandoning those sort of things. And now I think what's happened, which is a good thing, is that there's been a good clear out within the performing industry, within the festival industry. And there's a lot of youngsters are now taking control and going on. So I don't know whether I'll be doing much this year, but that doesn't matter because I'm getting pretty old. I mean, I'm like 74, and I've just got over cancer too. Well, it's what should we put it? It's in remission. I had a massive, well, you don't hear about this, do you? But I had an advanced prostate, which of course the treatment for that was weeks and weeks and weeks every day of radiation. And then injections of these strange female hormones, which put me in such a state for about 4 years of just sweating. Well, menopausal symptoms, but only very, very severe. And eventually I just said to the doctors, I can't take any more of this. I'm either going to top myself or I'm going to stop taking having these injections. And so they said, it's fine, Mick, just stop. And then they've kept a check on my blood levels. I've been fine ever since.
Okay.
Very weakened. I mean, totally asexual now. I mean, I mean, my balls are the size of peas, and I don't think my little Willie has stood up at all for the last 6 or 7 or 10 years, which probably is a good thing. And it's God's little joke on me. It's probably punishment for a life of complete and utter debauchery. We know what the 60s was like, particularly if you were from Liverpool.
So you lived a good life then.
Exactly. It could have been a lot worse. And now I live in a beautiful place here, right on the sea, and it's really very nice. 2 good daughters.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Now, at the moment, I'm working with blind lemon peel.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're pretty good. They're all right. But I was contacted by the producer in New York and asked me to do some stuff for them, and they're pretty happy with that now. So that's something I can be doing rather than performing.
Okay. So are you still keeping up with the music?
Yeah, I'm working with this American blues band at the minute. I've been doing that for the last couple of months. I'm doing 3 for them.
Okay.
I mean, I think I did send you one, did I? Or
Yes.
I think it's Marlboro Red, I think it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's been played in Los Angeles on the radio since I made it for them, yeah. But I'm not expecting any pay. It's just good fun.
Okay.
And as you're saying about the music, it's different what I do, and they haven't heard anything like that applied to their own music, so they're more than happy with it. They're very pleased.
Okay. So will you be doing any touring, any Shambhala or anything in the future?
It depends. I'm still waiting to hear. I mean, things are still very, very uncertain because, for instance, I live in Wales, which is different to England. And in Wales, you're not allowed to go anywhere without a mask, and you can't gather in large groups. And each country has its own laws, you see. So there's a lot of things which would have been in Wales, which probably won't happen. But there may be some in England. I don't know. I'll wait for the invites. But I suspect they'll be having some younger people on, because those poor young men who are trying to make the music and DJ and stuff have had 3 years without it. And if you're 25 and you get to 28, you're going to give up, aren't you? You're not going to continue that career because there isn't a career. So I'm hoping the place will be repopulated with some youngsters who are more deserving than I.
So a career in DJing really isn't that easy when it comes to.
Now, there's a lot of competition. I mean, everybody wants to be a DJ, don't they, at a festival? I mean, DJing in clubs and pubs is all very well, but the real pinnacle is the big stages in Glastonbury or whatever, you know. And that's what's good.
Yeah, because like I told you, I was looking through SoundCloud, and you could go through thousands, millions possibly of DJs that are out there. I mean, all over the world. Yes,
I know. It's a bit. I say it's a bit like when phones got their own cameras of high quality, and then suddenly everybody's a photographer.
Yeah.
Everybody's posting photographs. There's too many. It's lost all meaning. Taking a photograph, more or less. And I think the same applies to music. There's just so much out there that you can hardly find your way through the forest. In fact, the forest is just thorns. You just cannot get through it, you know, for youngsters. So it must be very hard for them. I think to make any impression, you have to do something very different.
Yeah.
But then it'll be a minority that will listen. You know, because most young people want, you know, whatever it is, drum and bass or whatever, or some combination of that. So yes, you can be different, but then you're destined for a much smaller audience, I think, anyway. But I've had, 1.5 million hits on my SoundCloud, so that's not bad. But there again, some bloggers get that in a week, don't they?
So, but do you think, because like you said, when you're going for the music and you're mixing and everything else, you're looking for how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
The quality and everything.
Yeah. I'm looking for a kind of a joy. I mean, when I get up in the morning now, I sit down and the first thing I do is make my coffee, and then I start getting back on mixing the music. And it actually lifts me. I feel I'm alive. I spend the rest of the day after that listening to Radio 4 or watching snooker or something silly on the TV. I become a pensioner in the afternoon, but in the morning I'm 25.
So do you think with all of that music out there, and don't get me wrong, it's absolutely great, but do you think some of the quality and everything, some of what's in here inside a person kind of gets lost too?
Yeah.
Because there are those people that are looking for the fame and everything else.
Yeah, and they're looking to join a genre or imitate someone else or be like someone else. But that's the human condition, isn't it? We want to be our heroes. But I mean, talking of that, I mean, the reason I got out of Liverpool, one was to escape prison and hell, but what gave me the push was in fact the Beatles. Because I was friends with some of the Liverpool poets that didn't know the Beatles, but I knew people who knew them, and what they'd done, what they were doing in the 60s just inspired us young Liverpudlians. If they can do it, we can do it. And so we did. We flooded out into the arts, into music, into all sorts of things, from Liverpool down to London, and it became a kind of a mafia, really. I mean, let's put it this way, the accent in those days would you allow you into a young girl's bed quite easily just from that, just from the accent. But yeah, people, it's just so much of it. It's just, and a lot of it is pretty poor quality too. I mean, technically it's poor quality. I've spotted young DJs. Well, when you see the band of you know, the tune, and it goes up and down, you know, a lot of them it's solid black top to bottom because they don't understand that volume making the thing louder doesn't do it. That's not how it works. But, you know, they don't understand it. But it's those sort of things which I like. For instance, if I want a tune to move, to pull you to kind of the rhythm to beat, I'll put a plus 3 microseconds on that particular line of drums, and that will make it go forward. It'll pull you forward. Just a simple technique like that. You wouldn't even know it was there. But if you go -3, it's a kind of slightly, you know, it's slightly lethargic. So little things like that, you know, they just don't understand them and don't know them. But I suppose that's why some people have jobs as music producers and others don't.
Yeah, I was listening to your version of Nathaniel Radcliffe, SOB.
Oh yeah, son of a bitch.
Yeah, son of a bitch. And I mean, it just pulled you, especially with the gospel mix in it. Yeah, it had that pull and it had that beat.
Yeah, the drive, yeah. I've forgotten all about that one. I've done well over 200 remixes altogether.
Yeah.
Even on SoundCloud, yeah. But I do remember it, yeah, son of a bitch, yeah.
Yeah. And
I don't know how I came upon that. I was doing the gospel bit, and in my head I suddenly remembered this riff, you know, and I thought, what is this? What is in my head that's going on whilst I'm listening to this blues, this gospel? And I suddenly thought, oh God, yes, son of a bitch, that's the one. And so I grabbed a copy of that, which is totally illegal, and extracted some of the, you know, the thing from it, you know. But that is an issue now with SoundCloud because, well, I don't know what rights and stuff is really a big issue at the minute, and it's getting more and more difficult because I think in America they've extended it back 100 years, which puts virtually every piece of recorded music in the copyright, and these big companies are buying them up in order just to make money, you know.
yeah.
But I'll leave you alone if you're only, you know, if you're not making it for sale, and if you're not getting very many plays. They just land up. They wait in the lair for someone to do a really good tune, remixed, and using samples, and then they're making money. Then they step in, and they clean them out.
Yeah.
You know about that, surely? Yeah.
So, does it make it more difficult then to find the music and remix it? Because I remember listening to when you did the Facebook back in May of 2020, you seemed a little worried about them, you know.
Oh yes, yeah. That was just when Facebook started applying these algorithms,
Yeah.
which can find tunes. So yeah, I had to drop quite a few out of that mix. Because that would have been something I would have played. That set like that would have been played in the afternoon at a festival, sort of 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just chilled, people having a drink, sitting around, you know. But no, you're right. My first version of that was taken down.
So
I can't remember what tunes they were, though.
the tunes were amazing. Yeah, it was a very good mix of different music and everything. Small Town Sunday that you started off with was absolutely great. But yeah, I absolutely, love that. I still have you. I can't. Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it cut out for a little while then.
Yeah, I have you back though. So does it make it difficult then for you to find the tunes to be able to remix?
No, you can find them and you can use them, but then you've got to run the gauntlet of being told off. There are lots of little tricks that they use on SoundCloud. If you run a kind of something other than the tune that's being stopped for about 30 seconds, then it's too much work for the algorithm to find it further in the tune. It's when it's within the first 30 seconds that it will spot it. Although they could well have improved the algorithm by now, I don't know. But it seems kind of senseless to me, because in painting you're using the canon always. You're always referencing the canon, or else art doesn't mean anything. You know, art interacts with what came before and responds to it and criticizes it, whatever, but it has an interaction with it. And without something to interact with, it's just a meaningless image. It means nothing unless you have the history of art behind it.
Yeah.
And I think the same with music, you know. I mean, if I was a guy who was famous and had lots of good records and people would use them, I'd be very pleased. But then again, I don't care about money, so. I did make money once. I made a lot of money once, yeah. Maybe about 15, 16 years ago, I invented a product called Lasertran, which was a system of a paper that you put through a photocopier, toner-based, and then when you apply that to surfaces, the image would transfer to it. For instance, you could take a feather, brush it with a little turpentine, lay this image onto it that I just printed on my special paper. Overnight, the whole thing migrates into the feather and becomes part of the feather. And that applies to metal, glass. You can fire it in glass. You can use it as an etch resist. You can lay images over images on canvas. It was just a really great tool, you know. And we had an office. I went to every art school in America to demonstrate it, and used to go 8 times a year to trade fairs in the States, selling it. And I was making an absolute fortune, enough to have a whole thing built for my daughters, a restaurant and the whole thing, you know.
Oh,
it was
wow.
just, it was extraordinary, you know. And then I found myself in the office, it must have been 10 years ago, looking at the figures from New York, looking at the figures from the UK on a screen. And I thought to myself, Mick, what are you doing? What is this? What is this life you've got? Looking at numbers in a bank account. And I just decided at that moment, I turned to my business partner, said, Simon, I'm going home. He said, see you Monday. I said, no, you won't see me again. I'm never coming in again. You can have the business. So I gave the business to him, which he's gradually run into the ground over 10 years, but that's another matter. But I had so much money, I just gave it away. I gave it to my daughters, I gave it to anybody, you know, because I feel I'm uncomfortable with money. I don't know why. I just feel it's something which can be very corrupting.
Yeah.
You know, in a kind of in a mind sense, in a soul sense. You know, it corrupts people. It makes them imagine they have more power than they really have, and makes them feel that, you know, it's just. In my experience, it's corrupting.
Yeah.
You know.
And I've seen where people, especially if you go into an industry, and it doesn't matter what industry, especially just to make money and fame and everything else, it doesn't seem to work out as well as if you go into something and you love it.
And over my life, I've changed who I am every 10 years or so. I've had several personas, and that is the point. When I find I'm being monetized, or I'm finding I'm not concentrating, or often it's to do with, like with painting, for instance. Once you know how to paint, like I could, it stops its magic for you, because you look at another painting and all you're seeing is technicalities. It's that moment where creativity ends and you're just good at it. And you see it in a lot of contemporary artists, particularly my generation in the States, where they hit something, say, in the 70s or 80s, and then continue to reproduce it and make money. You know, they don't go anywhere. And so when I find myself in that position where I know too much, and I'm almost getting to that point with the music, I pack it in and do something else. And the next thing I might do will be writing, but that's another matter.
Okay. So then look out for possible writings from Mick.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes.
So are you still doing anything with painting, or have you given that up?
No, when I packed it in, it coincided when I changed to music. It coincided also with my eyes getting bad because of, you know, I had to wear glasses, and wearing glasses and painting is not easy. I'm sure you can get used to it, but you're all over the place. As you turn your head, that's out of focus, that's in focus. You, oh God, you know, kind of produces a sort of a nausea when you're not used to wearing glasses. And so that there was several things stop me painting. But when I do stop something, I never do it again. I never revisit.
Okay.
I kind of see that as a kind of a defeat. You're going backwards instead of forwards, you know.
Okay.
That's the way I feel about it, but it's probably not true, not a good thing, but I will not revisit. Like I don't do ceramics anymore. I mean, I was quite a well-known ceramicist in London at the time, way back. You know, I had stuff with heels and all these different, but again, I was ripped off, so what the hell.
So then you're constantly moving forward.
Yeah, to the inevitable end. Which ain't far off.
So real quick, where did you come up with the name Eclectic? Eclectic.
Oh, that's the way it's spelled. That was a bunch of young DJs. When I got to Glastonbury, they said to me, "What's your stage name?" And I said, "I haven't got one." And so they came up with one for me. And they spelt it in that weird way. And it's stuck with me now. I can't get rid of it. I can't even spell it myself, you know. That was Captain. He's the music director of Boomtown, which is a massive festival here, 50,000 people, complete chaos, drum and bass madness, you know, and all kinds of mayhem there. But they came up with that for me. And also gave me a little, when I got there, not at Glastonbury, but at a Boomtown, I twisted my ankle hunting with my dogs and ripped my Achilles tendon right across, you know. And so when I arrived there, they had a little golf buggy waiting for me. So I was charging around the festival on my golf buggy, you know. But the youngsters do look after me. I mean, you know, I might be sitting backstage in the morning and, you know, we all camp together and I'll make coffee for like 20 DJs and their girlfriends. And, you know, they're like the old boy, and I tell them stories. Because I've got lots of stories in my life.
Any interesting stories that kind of stick out to you right now, or?
Would you want to hear one about my brother? Well, when I was younger and I was at art school, my tutor there, ceramics tutor, introduced me to a woman called Brynhilde Parker, who lived in the south of France in Antibes in the old town. She'd arrived there in the 30s and bought a, you know, just from her spare change and her pockets, bought a street or two of these tiny little cottages in the old town by the market. And my brother, he was at a loose end. He's just come out of prison and what have you. He was younger, but he was same background. And I said to her, "Look, could my brother come and stay with you, you know, down there, because he could get work on the yachts and what have you in the harbour." And so he went down there, stayed with her, and made something of his life and become quite a character down there. And then one day we hear he's in prison in France. He's only had a bet in the Bar du Port that he could rip off and steal from the Chateau Grimaldi. And at the time, it was the world's biggest art robbery. He nicked about 20 Picassos for a joke, yeah? Now, when they were stealing them, they would lower them down the cliff from the tower, because they got into the top tower of the Grimaldi Chateau. And the rope slipped and these things went falling down the cliff. And there happened to be Canadians illegally camping on the rampart overnight. And it woke them up and they saw it all. And then they took the number of the getaway car. Now, Brynhilde, who Danny was staying with and living with, she's an old girl, but she's an ex-lover of Picasso very good friend of the curator to the museum. And, you know, Roland Penrose, all these important people. She was part of that set, you know. But he'd hidden them under her bed because it was the only hiding space in the house. And after about a week, the armed police arrive and burst in. And he's arrested and put in this jail. So then his girlfriend's there. Ah, yes, she's a Finnish girl. And what we're going to do? And then Bryn, lovely woman, you know. I've got some lovely photographs of her painting a nude by what's his name? Bill Brandt, you know, the photographer Bill Brandt, very famous. Anyway, she was great. And she says, what we're going to do is I have an old lover friend who calls me Gin Fizz from the 30s, and he's the best lawyer in Provence. So we went to see him, trying to get Danny out or get some help for him, you know, because it was only a joke in the first place. And he says, well, I can't do it for money, but what can you give me? She said, well, this lad's a painter. So I painted a painting for him. He then accepted the painting and got the boys banned from France rather than going down for 10 years because the city of Antibes demanded like 10 years for the malfaiteurs at least, you know, and they got him out. So that's the little story there.
Oh, that's good. Oh,
this one. And I have a sister too, who got trapped in Beirut during the war.
Oh.
And it took her 3 years to escape from there. And that's another long story. You don't hear these stories. There's loads of them.
Is she okay though, your sister?
Yeah, she's fine. Yeah. Well, God, she was a beautiful woman. Beautiful. She was a bunny girl at one time. Oh dear.
Well, real quick, last question. Do you have any future plans? Any new music or anything you want people to look out for?
Not really. No, I'll be doing stuff. I'll be doing once I finish with this blind lemon peel all stars, whatever they're called. Once I've finished with them, which will be in the next couple of weeks, I think they're sending me some extra brass to put on that last tune. But once I've done that, I'll start looking through my archives then and find something that really touches me, and I'll work on it. It'll probably be gospel-y, bluesy gospel-y, which I kind of like at the minute.
Okay.
You know, but when I've done one, I'll let you know about it.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Well, thank you, Mick. Thank you for taking out the time and everything. I appreciate it.
That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. Nice to see you. And I must say, you look very different than the photograph on your Facebook.
Is that good or bad?
I like the shorter hair.
Thank you. Thank you.
It looks good. It looks good.
Thank you.